ตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ Blessings, good evening to you all. Today at the monastery we had what we call a working bee, or a good karma day. So many volunteers came and helped to clean up the monastery, do some gardening, cleaning the grounds and cleaning building site. We're building one new building and needed tidying up, cleaning up. Somebody mentioned how they find it very restful, even though they're working, physically working, using their body, using their muscles. They find it restful in their mind because they're just working for a good cause rather than for themselves, for money or for anything. Just doing something useful for everyone. And they said this is something they find very useful to do this. Brings them a good feeling, a good connection with other people, but also a kind of cleansing. It's a kind of cleansing process because you're letting go of any self-interest when you volunteer or do something that's not really for your personal benefit, but more just something that's good for the community. You're letting go of some of yourself as you do that, your sense of self. So this is a very important point in developing our minds, our hearts, our minds in Buddhism, is to learn how to do this, to do things without seeking much in return or anything in return, because our habit is to always be thinking about what are we going to get out of anything we do in life, what's in it for me, and that applies even to Buddhism. Maybe even you come listen to a Dhamma talk, what will I get from this, what knowledge will I get? You do some meditation, what will I get from that? Will I feel peaceful? Will I become enlightened? If you do some volunteering or you do some kind of generosity or donation, you may be thinking, what will this get for me? What will I get out of this? It's a natural human way of thinking, isn't it? You always think about what we're going to get back from what we do. This effort that we put forth, this energy, physical or mental energy we use up, what's in it for me? What will I get back? So it's very healthy for us, as this person was pointing out, just to do something where we're not going to get anything in particular back. And still do it. And maybe even try our hardest, put a lot of effort in for absolutely nothing, no personal reward. And the more we can do that with a clear intention and in a very sort of sincere way, the funny thing is we actually do get a reward. We get the happiness of letting go. But as soon as you start wanting that, then of course it's not so pure, your mind is not so pure anymore, and you may not get quite so much out of the experience, the practice you're doing. So it's a constant reflection, whether you're practicing generosity, keeping precepts, meditating, listening to Dhamma, it doesn't matter. It's something you have to keep checking, whether this desire for some kind of reward or what's in it for me slips back into your thinking or your motivation in what you're doing. What we learn from the Buddha's words and the Buddha's teaching is that this mind ultimately doesn't have a self or an owner. The mind is just a quality, a natural quality that knows. It's very pure. But because of the presence of delusion or ignorance, mental defilements keep coming up with the mind or entering the mind, as it were, causing us stress and suffering. But those mental defilements and the mind itself are not the same thing. And part of our practice, or the center of our practice, is becoming more and more aware of that truth. That even though we do have all kinds of mental activity we experience from moment to moment, and a lot of it is bringing up agitation, stress, you might even say suffering. This is something additional or extra to the mind. It's not the mind itself. There's the stressful thoughts or the agitated thoughts or the desires, the wanting, and then there's the mind itself. And they're two different things. And the Buddha encouraged us to look maybe in the direction where you can understand this most easily first. So he actually encouraged us first just to look at the body, our body, because often we overlook that when we meditate. We kind of go inwards and maybe experience some peace, and we're watching our thoughts and everything. We forget all about the body. It's quite easy. But the Buddha encouraged us not to do that. He said, first of all, examine your body when you meditate. Ask yourself, is this body mine? Is it a person? Does it belong to anyone? With regard to those mental defilements rooted in greed, anger and delusion, you can say, does the body have mental defilements? Say you're meditating on the breath today, you're breathing in, breathing out, watching that. You say, is the breath itself is there anything defiled about the breath? When I feel greed, is that the breath? Is there such a thing as a greedy breath? When I feel angry, is it the breath that's angry? Is there an angry breath? Well, our breathing mechanism may reflect our mood. Depending on your mood, sometimes you breathe faster or heavier, or softer, or lighter, longer and shorter, and so on. But these are just reflections of the mental mood. The breath itself doesn't have any of those things. It doesn't get greedy or angry. That's the same for every other bit of your body. Does your hair get greedy? Does your skin get angry? Nothing, there's no defilement in your physical body. The physical body is just made up of natural elements. Earth, air, fire, water, solid bits, liquid bits, the temperature changes, the gases and the air. These are all just natural elements, but they don't experience greed, anger, delusion, these mental defilements which we start to observe are the cause of our stress and agitation. So the more you study the body, observe the body the way it is, that gives you some clear insight. These mental defilements are not based in the body. They may take the body as an object. We can become greedy or lustful about the body, or we can hate our body, or we can feel bored and fed up with our body, whatever. But the actual experience of emotions, negative emotions, views, opinions, none of these are based in the body or in any part of the body. So that's something you can observe and look at. Perhaps it's the most easiest thing to observe when you're meditating. Just look at your own body and ask questions and ask yourself, well, is happiness and suffering in the body, or where is it? And you probably start to see, well, it's associated more with the mind, its thoughts, emotions, feelings. But then you can look at them, the mental activity we experience. So you're looking at feelings as you meditate. Is you experience a feeling of pleasure? Is there any greed in that, in the actual feeling itself? Or is that something that comes afterwards? We become greedy for pleasant feelings. We like pleasure, sometimes very coarse kinds of pleasure, sometimes very refined, subtle kinds of pleasure. Some pleasure is very fleeting, some is very seems to be more long-lasting. But the actual pleasant feeling is one thing. If there is any greed or any reaction at all to it, that's something else, isn't it? The greed is not the feeling. Or the same with aversion. We usually experience aversion around painful, unpleasant feelings. But is the feeling itself the aversion? Or is there the painful feeling, which is one kind of feeling, and then the aversion is our reaction to it, the negative emotion that forms around it perhaps, or in reaction to it. So just as we investigate the body, and we can investigate different aspects of our mental activity. It's much harder. Feelings come and go, and they can be very subtle, so often we miss them. Sometimes we don't even notice how we are forming greed around a certain pleasant feeling, or forming aversion around an unpleasant, painful feeling. We don't even notice. It's so subtle, habitual. But this is where the Buddha said, investigate. Start to notice that. Feelings that are very neutral, neither pleasant nor painful, are even harder maybe at first to recognize for what they are. Because they're so neutral, they encourage us just to go to sleep, to be dull. There are times in our life when we love to be numb, dull. But that's still a form of reaction to the feeling. It's not the feeling itself, it's just what is triggered by that feeling. As you meditate, you can start to notice that, investigate that. So as you keep practicing in this way, the Buddha said you may come to a point where your mind becomes very still, quiet, and much or all of that mental activity just goes quiet. And sometimes you might just be with a mind that is very still, calm, peaceful, doesn't seem to have any defilements at all, at least for a while. That gives you another insight. It shows you these greed, anger and delusion don't always have to arise in this mind all the time. There may be times in our day, in our life, when they're not there. Because what is one of our biggest problems is we keep identifying with our stress, our suffering in life. It's probably why you come to meditate or listen to talks on Buddhism. You're interested to understand things and find a way out of that. And one of the biggest problems is we keep identifying with every thought, every emotion, every feeling as me. But if you experience a mind that is more still, or completely still, where's all that meanness, the stuff you identify with normally as me, where's it gone? You can ask that question. We often say it, don't we? Say, I am a happy person, or I'm an angry person, I'm a worried person. We believe and become the various moods and perceptions we hold on to them, we identify with them. But when your mind becomes more still as you practice meditation, you can see, well, the mind itself is not greedy or angry or anything. It's just this quality of knowing from moment to moment to moment. And it gives us a new perspective on all that mental movement, mental agitation. But to get to that new perspective, you have to practice. So you have to do it regularly, and maybe sometimes you find it very difficult, and that's normal, but there'll be times when you're more successful. If you keep asking the right questions, you keep practicing mindfulness, keep letting go, there may be times when you do let go and your mind becomes very clear and still. And you can say, oh, all that greed is gone now. All that anger, anguish, despair, fear, worry, it's gone. All that mental agitation has subsided. And it's clearly not a self. It's not who I really am. It's a bit like this time of year, in the winter here, when you drive along the bottom of the valley, because we're in the mountains, you go along the bottom of the valley, and if there's been rain, you get a thick fog at night because of the cold air. And you can hardly see more than a few meters ahead. But then, say, as you come up onto higher ground or you just move to a different area, the fog disappears. But there's a moment where you're in thick fog, and then you gradually come out of it, and then all the fog is gone. It's a bit like that when you meditate. As your mind becomes more still, you gain this clarity. So at first it may be just partial glimpses of the stillness, the purity, the peace of the mind. But then suddenly it's complete, and the mind becomes completely still because you've been practicing mindfulness and putting effort forth. It's completely still, radiant, clear, and then you can look back and say, oh, all of that other stuff was the fog. The stuff that was blocking my clarity and clear vision and stillness. And this is something we have to work towards through developing mindfulness. This is why we meditate and develop mindfulness, whether we're standing, sitting, walking, lying down. To bring the mind inwards, bring our attention inwards to the mind, and then to see through all the mental activity, the agitation, the confusion, the moods, the happiness, the suffering, but also to ask questions to the point where we can see none of this stuff is really a self. None of it is permanent. None of it is true happiness, because it all arises and ceases. And this kind of insight gives you a new view on things, a new view on your mental activity, and of course it applies to the body as well, your physical body. You get a new view on it, and you realize, when somebody passes away, it's the physical body is breaking up. That's what death is. It stops working, breaks down, or gets too old to function anymore. But the mind doesn't die, and it's this quality of knowing that's independent of the body and independent of emotions, thoughts, memories as well. The mind is just this impersonal quality of this knowing, stillness. But that's happiness, a true kind of happiness, or a higher happiness. This mind is like, it's a story. It's also a storage vessel for all the karma we make, good and bad, through our life. Day by day we make all kinds of decisions and choices, and do things and say things and think things. All of this is what we call karma, meaning that with our intentional, volitional action of body, speech and mind, we do things. We make karma, meaning we do things that have an impact, first of all, on the mind itself, leaves an impression, and then gradually, because there's that impression, it sets into motion a set of causes, which eventually, when the causes and conditions are ripe, brings a result back to us in one way or another. Sometimes very quickly, sometimes slowly. Karma can be complicated. We make many kinds of karma, often in rapid succession, but the mind is the place that is storing all of this up. Each moment of karma, karmic activity, each volition or action is leaving an imprint on the mind. If your mindfulness becomes very clear, very good, you may be able to trace back karma, things you've said and done, and what leads to what. Sometimes you can do that, sometimes you can't. It's very difficult, but it's possible. The mind doesn't actually lie in the sense, when you go about your business in your day, say if you go to work, we're always trying to present a certain version of ourselves to the world, to our work colleagues, our friends, our family, our partner, our parents, our children, whoever. We always present something to others, and we present by the way we do things, what we say, what we tell other people. But a lot of the time we're hiding stuff. Sometimes, when I say hiding, it's not necessarily an evil act to hide something. Sometimes there's all kinds of stuff we think about or do we don't really need to tell anyone. It happens, we've done it, but we don't pass it on or explain or show it to anyone. Sometimes, particularly when you do things that you maybe are embarrassed about or you're not very happy with what you've done, you regret, well, you often do hide them. You don't tell other people all the mistakes you've made, maybe. But your mind stores it all up, whether you like it or not. Your mind doesn't lie in that sense. And that's why karma follows you around and sometimes catches up with you. Sometimes at the most awkward moment or the most unlikely moment or the time when you really don't want it to catch up with you, it does. It follows us. What did the Buddha say? It follows us like the wheel of the ox cart follows the ox. In the case of bad karma, because an ox cart wheel is very heavy, and so the ox pulls it along, and so there's always this heavy wheel, kind of burdensome wheel weighing the ox down, but always bearing down on the ox as though it's about to crush the ox. It's just a picture the Buddha was painting about our more negative karma. Is like that, the ox cart wheel. The more positive, beneficial karma we make, he compared to a shadow, which is light. And you walk around, you never feel your shadow or notice your shadow. It doesn't feel like it's some heavy weight about to crush you like a ox cart wheel. It's the opposite. It's very light. It's so light you don't notice it. Good karma is like that. But the thing is, it's always following us. The fruits of our actions stored up in our mind are following us all the time and giving results all the time. Whether you tell anyone about it or not, whether other people know or not, you know. You know yourself the best. What we tend to notice is when the bad karma, the unwholesome, unskillful karma we've made comes up, gives its result, we tend to notice that because it's always getting in the way of our happiness and causing us problems and causing obstructions to what we're doing, making life harder, often being very painful in different ways. So we tend to notice it more. The good karma we often miss. It's often very subtle, like the shadow. We miss it, we take it for granted. Often we're very kind of complacent, so we're constantly receiving the fruits of our good karma from day to day in many, many different ways, and yet we often don't acknowledge it much because it is kind of lightweight and it's what we expect, is what we want. Whereas the bad karma we don't want, and we're always trying to get away from it, get rid of it, stop it, block it. As a monk, people always come and ask you, is there a way I can get rid of all my bad karma? I must have been asked that question 100,000 times or something over the last 40 years. If you're a Buddhist teacher, you'll find people always ask this. Because everyone can remember at least some, if not all, of their bad actions from the past. They all feel bad about what they've said and done. They're worried when it's going to give its result. So everyone wants this quick fix, get rid of the bad karma, which we can't really do. But we can make good karma over and over again, which will help to limit the intensity of our bad karma when it gives its result, and maybe not bother us too much, even though it still gives its result. It just doesn't bother us because we focus more on doing the good. Trouble is when we're not very mindful, not very aware, not aware of this mind, we get caught into the superficial attributes and characteristics of our karma. So this is why we keep noticing the bad stuff when it comes up, because it's not what we want. We're always hoping to get what we like, what we want. That's our default position. So when we don't get what we want, we notice it. It's a problem. So we spend a lot of our lives dealing with bad karma as it comes up, and often not very skillfully. We often make it worse than it needs to be. You have that bad memory, you feel bad about something you said or done, and then you keep thinking about it, keep remembering and keep reacting and keep holding on. And sometimes it leads us to make even more bad karma. We make mistakes, or we tell another lie to hide the first lie, or we go and do something to clear up the first bit of mistake we made. We go and make a second mistake or a third mistake. Sometimes it's like that. But we seem to spend a lot of our time dealing with the fruits of our more negative karma, rather than acknowledging the good stuff. That's one part of our practice, is when you bring your mind to be mindful from moment to moment and make it more still, more aware, more clear, then you can notice this. Oh, there's actually a lot of good stuff that's happened in my life and is supporting me right now. In Buddhism we say, number one, you're a human being. You're here. You're already a human. Whatever's going to happen at the end of your life, or whatever happened last life, or whether there are such things, because a lot of people don't believe in it, it doesn't matter. You're here right now. You're a human being. You're intelligent. Hopefully you have reasonable health. Maybe not. But if you're listening to this talk, you've probably got some aspects of your health are okay. You've got ears, I assume. You can hear. You can see, maybe. You may not be in the best of health, but hopefully you've got something going for you. That's your good karma. You have some faith in the Buddha and his teachings, more good karma. Hopefully you're in a reasonably peaceful place, even if you're living in relative poverty or in some difficult situation somewhere. If you're listening to this talk, probably you've got enough good conditions that you can practice the Dhamma on some level. This is all your good karma. If you're not starving, you still got a roof over your head of some sort or other, this is your good karma. If you got loving parents or partner or kids or friends or people around you, there'll be all kinds of good supportive conditions in your life that are happening right now. And sometimes we have to acknowledge that. And then when the more negative karma manifests, which may just be a feeling or a memory in our mind, it may not be anything dramatic on the outside, but maybe just a thought, is much easier to cope with, isn't it? When you're already noticing how fortunate you are. When you remember some of the good opportunities you've had, the good people you've known, the good things that have happened and that are happening, not just from the past, but are currently happening as well. Then even though some of these negative karmas come up, the obstacle, the painful thing, the problem, it doesn't bother you too much or so much. But that's something you have to train in or practice, isn't it? Because our habit is always to focus on the negative and go and be dragged down, mentally dragged down by the negative. Think about it, attach to it, identify with it more. We miss what is good. Over and over again we do this. And a lot of our stress and suffering is based around this. So when you bring your mind to this point of stillness and awareness, and you're just observing in a more kind of neutral, mindful way, this, for me anyway, becomes more apparent. One, how we attach and identify strongly with our negative karma and make a lot of stuff out of it and miss a lot of the good karma. But also too, how we just have this sense of self that grabs everything and says, this is me. When your mind becomes more still, you can see the me making, the I making is a construction or a fabrication. We call it a fabrication or creation of the mind, proliferation of the mind. It's something we add on all the time through our thinking, our ideas, our knowledge. We create the self and the expressions of self all the time, coming out of this mind that is actually very still, pure and without self. Of course, it's useful for the world. We use our ideas and our knowledge to help each other. We have language and we have all kinds of systems and ways of doing things in the world. It may vary from one country to another or one group of people to another. There may be variations, but ultimately this is all created in the mind, what we call samuti satcha, or conventional reality, that we create out of the mind, but then unfortunately half the time we're taking that as ourself. So my thoughts are me, my views on things are me, I identify with them, and we get a lot of suffering from that. Because it's a creation of the mind, it's not ultimate reality, it's a creation. It can change on us. Language you can forget. I often tell people how when I was living in Thailand with Luang Por Anan at his monastery, there was long periods where I would only speak Thai every day. If I spoke to anyone, it was just in Thai. Got to the point where I just dream in Thai, think in Thai. And then when I had to talk to my mum on the phone in English, she would get upset because I'd forget English words sometimes in my conversation with her because they just didn't come to mind as quickly as they should, because I was speaking Thai, the Thai language every day. So she would get a bit annoyed with me for forgetting English words. But it's just showing you, isn't it? Memory, language, it's impermanent. Perceptions are impermanent. Desires and attachments are impermanent. And you're seeing that in different ways. But when your mind is still, you realize these are all creations of the human mind. Many minds working together, perhaps, communicating, cooperating. So it can be very useful stuff. But it's all a creation of the mind. It's not absolute or ultimate truth. As Luang Por Chah used to say, you can use a spittoon to put in your urine at night, or your spittle when you spit out, or you can clean it and cook rice in it and use it to eat your rice. In the end, these are things that human beings create and make decisions. And we say, well, that's a spittoon for urine or rubbish, or it's a cooking pot today. Human beings can agree in many different ways on different things, but this is all extra. Ultimately, it's not self, is it? It's one way of understanding not self, is looking how we differ in the way we view things. Like today we were clearing up the building site in our working bee, and we have to keep the long bits of wood and throw away the short bits of wood that nobody can use, because when you build a timber frame building, there's plenty of offcuts, we say, but some of it is just waste that nobody's going to use because they're so small. But some of the waste is longer pieces that you can still use for something else. But you have to decide what is a long piece, what is a short piece. And one person had a pile, and I came along, I said, "Oh, that's all good stuff." And they said, "Oh, I thought we were throwing this stuff away, it's the short stuff." Who decides what is long, what is short? It's not, in the end, nobody is right. These are just views and opinions that we hold, and that's the same for everything in life, isn't it? And it comes out of your mind. If you're mindful and aware, understand what you're doing, it's okay. It's language, views and opinions, decisions we make, choices we make are just useful tools for humans to go about their business. But half the time we're not mindful and wise, and so they become a basis for disagreements and conflicts and arguments. My bit is long, my bit is short. I want a short bit, I want a long bit. All our preferences in life vary from person to person, and they're all, we say, subjective. It just depends on your opinion, what you want. But what you want may not be what someone else wants. And we take it so seriously that we even get to the point where we, have huge arguments, conflicts, loves and hates, and a lot of suffering based on just what you might say is imagination. This is mine. No, it's not. This is yours. This is mine. It's never ending, is it? The only place it ends is when you bring your mind, your attention back to the mind that is still, quiet, and then you can see what's going on. And you don't want to cling to what you know is just a creation of the mind. It doesn't mean to say you can't use ideas and thoughts and language. You can. But you don't want to cling to the point where it becomes suffering, painful, confusing. And most of us, if we're honest, this mind throws up all kinds of emotions and thoughts that we find confusing. We're not peaceful. So the Buddha said it's imperative to experience this, the mind that is still, aware, where it's mindful and you can investigate and see the truth of things, rather than always being caught up in the superficial reality of the things and the sort of believing everything your mind throws up and identifying with it as a self, rather than just doing that in a habitual way. You have to be able to look at things, observe, and understand more correctly, develop right view. So maybe I'll leave you with these thoughts here, and for the next part of the session, if anyone has any questions, feel free. We'll do our best to answer them for you.